By two people who know dogs very well. Animal behaviourist Hannah Malloy and Ryan O'Meara, editor of Canine magazine and a former dog trainer. Welcome both. Hannah, I'll start with you. You've been pushing for reforms in Parliament. What do they need to do, the government, to stop these horrific attacks? Because we did that deliberately with Emma Birch, because that's a family pet. But if you're me, and you, I mean, I do it when I walk with the kids in the park, I see one of these bloody big animals and I'm terrified.
Yeah. It's a huge issue, and it's a community issue, a massive community issue, and I would argue it's everybody's problem. Even if you are a cat owner, or you, Jeremy, a non-dog owner, 1 in 3 houses has a dog. So actually we really need to collectively come up with some solutions. There's been lots of talk in Parliament, we've gathered experts, and we've really been looking at what is happening in terms of statistics, why is it happening, and what can we do to solve it.
Do we need to ban more breeds? I mean, we named the 4 there, and then we hear a spaniel attack this woman.
Yeah, so
is she right about COVID? What? I don't understand that.
The statistics actually say that dog bites have been rising for the last 20 years. So the COVID pandemic has had an impact on dog behaviour. Rescue centres are seeing that they have bigger dogs and they have more complicated dog behavioural issues. But actually, the effects of the pandemic weren't that massively seen. There are more dogs. And lots of people who'd never had a dog before got a dog and didn't have anywhere to take it for training. But to be honest with you, this is a bigger issue. We don't have the right data, number one. The data that's available is all hospitalisation data. So there's loads of people across the country who have been bitten by dogs, and we don't have that data to look at all.
Let's join Ryan O'Meara. Ryan, this is extraordinary. Are you a behaviour... You're an editor of a magazine. Are you a dog trainer?
Yes, I used to train dogs for a living, yes.
And you have with you quite a big, a dog that people will go, oh my goodness. You say that the Dangerous Dogs Act is outdated. Should we be banning more breeds, sir, or is it the people who aren't able to train these dogs correctly?
Well, I think that the Dangerous Dogs Act proves categorically that a breed ban approach fails. In fact, I would go as far as to say it massively exacerbates the problem for 2 main reasons. The first being that there are innocent people getting dogs who think, well, this isn't one of the so-called, inverted commas, dangerous ones, therefore it must be safe, which is ridiculous. Every single dog is capable of biting someone, and as tragically we've heard already, that goes all the way down to smaller breeds, and they can cause damage. They can take human lives if it's babies. Banning breeds hasn't worked. We banned breeds in 1991. In the decade leading up to the introduction of the Dangerous Dogs Act and breed bans, we lost the same amount of people in a decade.
All right, so we're going around in circles. All right, so we're going around in circles. What's the answer? Do we ban more breeds, or are we saying that there are indeed should be mandatory dog licences for owners?
Well, dog licences alone won't do it, and we absolutely categorically shouldn't be banning breeds. Consign that ideology to the history books. It's failed. What we should be doing is saying 3 things. Breeders, irresponsible breeding of dogs is a massive problem. It's going to be even worse in times of financial hardship because it's profitable. For many people to just breed a litter of puppies and sell them to anyone is basically attractive when times are hard. The other thing we need to do is make sure that people, before they are allowed to get a dog, show a minimum level of competence. We wouldn't take the same approach with dogs that we do with cars. We wouldn't say, well, have a go, see if it works out for you. We make sure that people have a minimum understanding. If we were to focus on education, and all of the major dog welfare organisations agree on this, we would actually see some results. Talk of banning breeds, and in fact demonising breeds, creates more problems. It doesn't solve any.
Hannah, do you agree with Ryan?
I absolutely do. Yeah, breed-specific legislation hasn't worked. I think we need a centralised licensing system. I do, and education for children in primary schools. You know, we've got so many dogs. We really need to teach kids how to interact with them. And I think we do really need to tighten down on breeding. There are some breeds of dog that are bred with so much physical dysfunction. They're in painful bodies. And so they're much more likely to be aggressive. They also have less facial featuring. so they're likely to be aggressive a little bit more quickly.
Do you agree with Ryan that people should, pass not basic tests, but people should show a level of competence? Anybody, you make the point about lockdown, which I get now. People got a dog, they're only able to walk an hour a day. I mean, you'll laugh at this analogy, but my kid was a pandemic baby. None of them went outside, apart from an hour. None of them went to nursery. And now if there's somebody coughs within a mile of him, they all get ill the whole time. I guess dogs as well, not being trained, not having that exercise, pent-up aggression. Is that part of the issue, do you think?
They're not resilient. They don't bounce back from stress in the same way. They haven't had opportunities to go, what's that? And then learn from that.
Can any dog turn?
Yes, absolutely.
Right, Ryan, let me bring you in on that, because Hannah's honest, right? And listen, the reason I wanted to do this was I have never had a dog, because when I was 18 months old, my mum always told the story in Alsatian, bit me on the head, jumped in the pram, and it always has been like that for me. I recoil, and I'm being completely serious. You're sat there with something that I wouldn't go within a mile of when you're stroking it like it's a pet. I'm sure it is a pet. What would you say to people who are scared of these animals? And what would you say to people who, in the family home or whatever, suddenly sense this creature's going to attack them? What are we supposed to do, man? Because I just want to run for my life, but I know that doesn't work.
Well, I think this is important. I go to my local park, and I would hazard a guess, if I'm being generous, that if 50% of the dogs are properly trained, I would say that's optimistic. We've got a problem in this country where we have people with dogs who do not understand dogs. So I'm a dog owner. The things that you're talking about affect me. So people that let their dogs run up to me and my dogs, people who let their dogs off the lead but can't control them, that's a huge issue. And it's particularly the case where if somebody doesn't fundamentally understand the pet, and let's be honest, you mentioned it earlier, dogs are man's best friend, they have earned that title. If people don't understand the pet, then they are going to not spot warning signs, they're going to not train their dogs properly. And so we see it now with social media. People post photographs on social media of their dogs in their baby's crib, and it's terrifying. We have to make sure that if people are going to get a dog, they understand that's a privilege, not a right, and they have a responsibility to everyone, whether somebody else is scared of dogs or whether somebody just doesn't want to be hassled by someone else's dog.
Hannah, you'd agree, right? Because for me, listening to you two, you make perfect sense. I understand why people get them, but I find it quite interesting that somebody like you, you're into training these animals. You say they can turn at any time. That, for me, would always be a no-no. That's why I won't go there. So how can people be confident, even if they train them, even if they fulfill all the criteria? What's the answer?
Well, the thing is that when we learn about dog behaviour, dogs don't just immediately turn. They're not inherently aggressive. They avoid us. So the ladder of aggression, to get to the point of biting, the dog has already had to have gone head turn, nose lick, walk away. So many appeasement behaviours occur before the actual bite happens. So we need to spot these early signs. And just like with people, if you said, listen, I'm really not comfortable, please can you get out of my face? And we keep backing off and the person keeps coming forward, eventually we'll move into offensive to keep ourselves safe. So we have to understand dog behaviour and body language. It is crucial in order to change this narrative. But I think it's also important to be aware that, it's a much bigger problem than that. There's a breeding issue here. Dog trainers aren't regulated, so anybody can train a dog. And if you've got a dog who is living in an environment where it feels fearful of its owner, and it's tense anyway, and it's living in a painful body, and it's not having its basic needs met, again, you're going to get a dog who is going to be more likely to attack.
Hannah, thank you. Ryan, I really appreciate it. I mean, devil dogs are on the rise, but you two, I think, very eloquently describe how people need to take responsibility. They need to learn how to train it. More of that later now, next on JK Live.